So there we go. So we'll get started and other people will catch up when they come on if they're able to. Mahalo for joining us. Welcome to the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce Legislative Learnabout on paid medical and family leave. The Chamber of Sustainable Commerce is a business community that's striving to balance the people and environment first. Obviously, we can't have sustainable commerce without people first. So this is a issue that was rated in our top 5 with our members over the last 2 months. So we're super excited to learn more about it. Several people have emailed that they're looking forward to learning more. My goal personally with the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce is to get more people comfortable with providing additional testimony, live or written, so that we can increase our engagement. So thank you to Nicole Woo, who is here from Hawaii Children's Action Network. Let's let in Christy. So Nicole, I don't know if you want to tell people who may or may not know enough about HCAN. So why don't we start with you and then you can introduce Jared.
Yeah, I think we might have lost Jared. Did he fall off the screen?
He did. So, oh, you're right. We did. We'll see.
He's not trying to get back in?
Let's hope. Let's see. I don't see him yet.
Okay, well.
Here we go. Here he is.
Okay, he's back. Good.
There we go.
Okay, so yeah, thank you so much, Tanya. I'm Nicole Woo from Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks, and we are a group that advocates for Hawaii's children and families. And for children to thrive, their parents need to be thriving as well. And we see that paid family leave is a really important economic support for families, especially when they have babies, but also for all different stages in life. We're actually partnering with AARP and some of the kupuna groups because paid family leave is needed by people at all different places in their journey in life. So I'm going to share some slides.
And Larry Smith is joining us now
me?
from the Kupuna Caucus.
Yeah. Is there a way for me to share my slides? Oh, there we see. I see it. Okay. Thank you, Tanya. Okay. So, oh gosh, everything just ended up on top of my screen. Okay. There we go. Hopefully you can see this. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so just to quickly go over what is paid family leave. A lot of people think paid family leave is only for having new babies, but the type of paid family leave that we're thinking of is allowing workers to take time off and get part of their income when they need to care for their own serious health needs or those of a loved one, or to bond with a new child. So this is a quick graphic that shows on the left side 3 types of family leave. One is bonding with the new baby, which is what people think of. The second is caring leave. So that's for caring for a family member who's ill. Maybe it's a parent or a spouse, or even a child. You need to take some time off from work to take care of them. You can get some pay. And then there's active duty leave, which some states have as part of their paid family leave program. And that's if a member of a family who's in the military, for example, gets deployed. Often it's a military spouse who need to take some time off from work to make all the arrangements they need for the deployment. And it allows that spouse to take some time off and still get some pay while they deal with the active duty responsibilities. And then on the right side, there's medical leave, and that's for your own serious medical needs. If God forbid he needs to have chemotherapy, or, a surgery, something like that, they can take the time off to recover and still get some pay. And finally, the last bullet at the bottom of the slide is safe leave. That's another thing that some states have. That's as part of their paid family leave. That's for domestic violence survivors to do what they need to. They need to go to court to get a restraining order, something like that. They are able to take some time off and still get paid, because we do hear that financial insecurity is one reason that domestic violence survivors have trouble getting away from their abusers. So we want to provide them with that support. One reason that we're talking about a bill for paid family leave is that the United States is the only developed country that doesn't have some form of national paid family leave. I know that chart is hard to see on your screen, so I split it in half and blew it up. You can see on the right side at the very bottom, the United States has 0 weeks. We're the only one. The next country up from the United States, the second worst one, is Mexico, and they get 12 weeks. You go on the left side of the screen, you see Europe, Japan, they get a lot more time. On the left side, the OECD average is a little over a year. A little below that is Canada. They get a year. My cousin had twins. She got 2 years off in Toronto because she had 2 babies. So we really are out of the norm from other countries, which is part of why our parents are so stressed out. So to fill that gap, 13 states and the District of Columbia have paid past family leave laws. So we think we need to color in Hawaii on that map and join the paid family leave states. And I'll go through this kind of quickly, but when I talk to professional people, a lot of them say, oh, we already have paid family leave. They're lucky that their employer chooses to provide them with paid family leave. When you look at the data, only 1 in 4 private sector workers here in Hawaii have access to paid family leave. We do have some laws that provide unpaid leave. Those laws only apply to very large firms with like 100 employees or more. So most workers here in Hawaii don't qualify even for the unpaid leave, or if they do, they can't afford to take time off without pay. We do have temporary disability insurance here in Hawaii, or TDI, but that's literally for physical recovery from childbirths, like if you're having a new baby in the family. So if, TDI doesn't cover, for example, fathers to take time off, or if a couple is adopting a new baby, TDI doesn't apply to them, but paid family leave would. And the last bullet is from AARP, and it talks about all the unpaid caregivers that we have here in Hawaii, mostly for kupuna, but 150,000 unpaid caregivers, 144 million hours of unpaid care per year. That comes out to something like $2.5 billion in unpaid care. So in our state, we've been expecting our families to just cobble together care when they have these needs. And we just don't think anyone should have to choose between their loved ones and their paycheck. And that's why we really hope we can pass paid family leave here. There's been reams and decades of research. California is the first state to have passed paid family leave. That was over 20 years ago. So the researchers have found that paid family leave helps families, especially with children. It helps their parents manage. Working moms especially are helped out by paid family leave. These families, they have health benefits when they have paid family leave, or they have healthier outcomes. These families are more economically secure because they're getting some pay. The working moms are more likely to stay in the workforce. These families are less likely to need public benefits. And more the business community is coming around to see how paid family leave helps business. So these are just a couple of headlines in business publications talking about why paid family leave is really needed for business, especially small businesses. Again, there's been tons of research. They find that paid family leave, when employees have paid family leave, they're not like looking for a new job and they're not so stressed out with their family responsibilities. So they tend to be more productive. That helps increase the profits of these businesses. The employees are more loyal. So you have less turnover costs, having to continually retrain and advertise for new workers. They're likely to stick around when they have good benefits. And for small businesses, especially, a lot of them would love to be able to provide paid family leave, but they just can't afford it. If we set up a statewide program where everybody pays in, then the small businesses can afford to do this. So it helps even the playing field for them. A lot of small businesses here in Hawaii are losing workers to large companies because the large companies can provide better benefits. Even like Walmart's provide paid family leave at this point. So we really want to find a way for our local mom and pop shop businesses to be able to provide this leave. And similarly, the entire West Coast has it. If a young couple is thinking about what state, they have job offers in a couple different states, paid family leave is a factor in their decision making. And so if we want to keep families here in Hawaii, paid family leave is something that we might want to make sure that they have while they're here. So again, the type of program that we're thinking of is a state-run benefit program, sort of like Social Security or Medicare. That means small payroll deductions go into a state fund, and then the workers apply to that fund when they need to take leave. The really key thing here is that employers do not need to pay their workers while they're on that leave because the workers are getting paid from the state fund. If an employer wants to top it off, make it more generous, they can definitely do that, but at least we have this basic safety net for workers when they need to take time off. So here's a chart showing that. You can see on the left in the pink, that's the payroll deductions from employers and employees that go into the trust fund, which is the blue box. And then when somebody needs to take leave, it goes to the green box on the right, whether it's for care for family, care for yourself, or welcoming a new baby. And then also some of the costs from the payroll deductions go to the program administration, the yellow box. In other words, the state doesn't need to continually make an appropriation because rather than costing the state a bunch of money, it's actually covered by the payroll deductions. So it shouldn't be an expensive thing for a state to do at all. So we recently just got some numbers back from Vanderbilt University that does estimates for states that are interested in paid family leave. They use data that the US Department of Labor has gathered from the states that are running paid family leave programs. And they took a look at Hawaii's like size of our population, the age of our workforce, gender, our income levels, to sort of tailor it to how it would be here in Hawaii if we had a program. And this is based on a bill that we were trying to get passed last year, which will be again in the legislature this coming session. We find that currently employers are paying about 0.5% of their payroll just for TDI. And if we were to run a state paid family leave program, it would cost about 0.7% of payroll. And that would include the TDI. The idea is that we would take the private TDI system that we have now and just roll that into a statewide program. So employers would no longer have to pay the 0.5%. They'd pay a little bit more, maybe, but they would get so much more in benefits because the paid family leave program provides so much more. So employers could cover the whole 0.7%, or they could ask their employees to pay up to half of it. So it's sort of like with health insurance. Some employers pay the full cost of the health insurance premiums, or there's a cap on how much they can ask their employees to pay for their health insurance. So that's how the bill was designed, that employees can only pay, the most they can pay is half. And again, the state's administration costs for the program are included in that 0.7% of payroll. So how would that look to people? For a minimum wage worker who makes $29,000 per year here, they would pay $102 per year. That's assuming that their employer pays $102 as well. So $102 per year, that's less than $2 a week. And then when they need to take leave, that minimum wage worker would receive about $504 a week in benefits. That's about 90% of their wages, because we've learned that lower income workers need a high percent of their wages back in order for them to be able to afford to take this leave. For an average wage worker, which is about $62,000 a year here in Hawaii, they would pay in $217 per year, which is a little bit over $4 a week. They would receive about $930, so $217 per year, and they would receive $930 per week back in benefits. So it's a little bit less than 90% because they're in the middle, and we have a tiered system so that the higher the wage, the lower percent of your pay that you get back. And that's a lesson that we've learned from other states, that it works the best that way. So we hope that the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce can join our paid leave coalition. Actually, the Chamber has, but if you as individual members want to join, check out the paidleavehawaii.org website. And feel free to contact me anytime you have questions. I'll put this all in the chat. And now I want to introduce Jared Make, not Make. He is in Hawaii right now. He doesn't live here. He's a national expert on paid family leave, and he's nice enough to take some of his time while he's here in Hawaii to talk with us about paid family leave in Hawaii. He knows how it's running in all the other states. He knows about their laws. So I welcome him to talk to us about his impressions of what we have going on here and how it's going in other states. And then hopefully you have a lot of questions for him as well. So Jared, please take it over.
Great. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. And it's wonderful to be here. My aunt lives in Honolulu and is traveling. So I'm apartment sitting for several weeks and traveling and working while here. And it's such a pleasure, a real privilege to be here. And yeah, just to introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Jared Make, as Nicole just mentioned. I'm vice president of A Better Balance, and we're a national legal advocacy nonprofit with 4 regional offices, but work all around the country providing support on work-family issues, and paid leave is a major component of our work. And I should mention, I'm on my hotspot. My internet went out here right as this call was getting underway. So if for some reason I freeze or disappear, I'll come right back in on my phone. But, you know, in terms of my background, and I should say I'm based in Denver, Colorado, and can share more about the experience in Colorado as one of the more recent states with paid family and medical leave. But I've been working on this issue for coming up on 15 years. Helped to draft the model that all the states have based their programs on, including the legislation here in Hawaii, and have been providing support to the coalition for a number of years, bringing some of the legal and national work that we're doing, but have worked in all of the 14 states that have paid family and medical leave, and hopefully you all will become the 15th. So, you know, a little bit just to build on the great presentation from Nicole to share about some national impressions of doing this work. You know, as you just heard, we really do see a robust and only growing as more states pass these programs business case for paid family and medical leave. And supportive businesses have been really critical in the states that have passed these programs. And I'll use as an example, I mentioned again, I'm based in Colorado, and we are still the only state that passed paid family and medical leave at the ballot We passed it in November 2020. It took effect just over a year ago, last January, and it is working really well and can share more about that. But it reflects what we see around the country. These programs are working well for employees, for employers, and for the state and community as a whole. But in Colorado, as part of, again, passing it on the ballot, which we're the only state to have done, we had a really animated group of supportive businesses. I believe the final number was around 300. It grew in the months leading up, who would speak as employers to what it would mean to have access to an affordable program like this to support their employees. And really businesses that range the entire spectrum of industries, through organizations like yourself, who really got involved and wanted to just share their experience. Groups in Colorado, there's Good Business Colorado is one coalition and organization of businesses, and then Small Business Majority Colorado. So really robust organizing, and I really believe it was critical to our success to be able to provide the individual business perspective on the benefits of a program like this. And a little more, I'll just say, using Colorado as an example, it passed overwhelmingly. And I think one thing that Colorado proved, but it's been shown in poll after poll, is that this is a really popular issue among voters, regardless of party, whether somebody lives in a rural area or suburban area or an urban area. And that was borne out in 2020 in Colorado. We won districts and counties that Trump carried by 17 points in some examples. So regardless of party, including rural areas of the state, these are programs that are so popular. There is a real need. And one thing that we've seen in terms of that growing body of research, as Nicole mentioned, with California being more than 20 years old and an increasing number of states, is that once these programs are in effect, the satisfaction and support from employers is pretty significant in those states. And there's a lot of research from the earliest states that show that, even where there may have been some hesitation or questions, seeing the impact afterwards has made a big difference. And I know Nicole, spoke to the business case. So, just to share, that really is what we're seeing in the States. Certainly savings through productivity and more loyal employees, healthier employees, which does support the bottom line. But also, reduce turnover costs from employees returning to a job if they have access to paid family leave, including when a new child is born. The states that have these programs have higher rates of employees coming back to work after the need for leave, and that certainly entails savings for employers. And there's just a lot of research, and happy to go into more specifics if there's questions, but showing that there's a return on investment from employers who can afford to provide paid family and medical leave. And we're seeing that in the States. And I think, can share more about that data, including from the American Sustainable Business Council, but really showing in a range of industries that, the money that is being contributed to these programs, that is coming back in a greater amount, given some of these savings around healthier, more productive employees. I'll also just mention there's more and more research showing the job growth and economic growth associated with these programs. And really at the core of that research is when employees have access to wage replacement while they're out on leave, they're spending that in their local communities. And you see that come back to small and local businesses. So that's another growing area of research, and what we're seeing in the States. And then, I would also just emphasize what Nicole shared about how we're getting more and more polling that also shows, particularly among younger workers, and Gen Z, for example, that paid family leave is a top, and for Gen Z, the top issue that's considered when looking at other states to move to. And, it really is just reflected in the popularity of these, but it is a way, as Nicole mentioned, to retain employees, retain talented people in Hawaii, being able to grow their families here and be able to afford to do so and have access to paid leave. And then, yeah, I think one of the final points that I want to raise, which I think is so important that Nicole mentioned, is that the ways in which this in particular helps smaller businesses that can't afford to pay 12 weeks to their employees, for example, out of pocket, but would want to support employees, often who are like family, when they have a need, whether it's cancer in a family member or a new baby, and that small businesses are at a competitive disadvantage to the larger companies and corporations that can afford to pay this out of pocket. And given the popularity of the benefit, it really does impact the competitiveness. And I'll kind of just end on bringing it back to Colorado. As Nicole knows, having worked on this for years, I mentioned Colorado's program started paying benefits last January 1st, so just over a year ago. I was in an accident 2 days before it took effect, having written the ballot initiative, and for the first time in 15 years, needed to take a paid family and medical leave myself. So I was using the program on day one in Colorado, which was very bizarre, and threw me quite a bit when I realized the timing. But the really, I mean, so I could speak a lot to what it meant for me, for having to have multiple surgeries. I shattered my knee, hearing from my surgeon that it was an injury that ruined so many of her patients' lives. And when she realized I had worked on this program, told me the effect that it would have on her patients. So of course I saw firsthand what we know and the importance of having that security. But I also, as somebody in leadership of a small nonprofit, was able to see what it meant to us as an employer. And that ultimately it saved our company more than $10,000. We do have, as an organization that does this advocacy, we provide paid family leave to our employees, even if they're in a state that doesn't have a program, but it's expensive. And because Colorado's program took effect 2 days after my accident and covered weeks of surgeries and hospitalizations, I was able to save our company quite a bit of money because, they budgeted to pay me my salary and then they didn't have to for the weeks of leave that I took. I received the income from the state of Colorado. And for, some companies, they're able to use those savings if necessary, which, we didn't have to, and many employers don't, but to pay overtime, for example, to another employee, or if a temporary replacement is necessary. So those savings from paying an employee directly while they're on leave can really add up and make a difference. And I saw that firsthand. So yeah, I'll just kind of wrap up by saying Colorado, where I'm based, just showed what we've seen in these 14 states and that these programs work well. They're solvent. They're very affordable, very modest premiums, and it makes a big difference. Colorado paid $699 million in benefits in the program's first year to workers who needed leave for these purposes. And I look forward to the research that's going to show the effects for my fellow Coloradans, but what we know from other states, which is that there will be a lot of health, employee security, and bottom line savings for employers as a result. So yeah, thanks again for having me, and happy to answer any questions.
Jared, I do have a question. What year will Colorado start to see that surplus in this second year already? Like after that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, so I mean, these programs, and as Nicole mentioned, they're structured where they're self-sustaining in that these small premiums also support, the administrative costs. And having the state run the program as opposed to a private system also entails savings because the state's not in the business of trying to make a profit on the program. But it is very quick that you start to see the surplus. I mean, states and Nicole can speak to the legislation here in Hawaii, but generally it'll be a small loan from the state to get it up and running, and then that in all the states is paid back almost immediately once premiums start to be collected from employers. And in many states, the increasing number of states, employers can have employees contribute to the cost, up to half like proposed here. So these programs are really running very smoothly. They're fiscally stable. There's lots of actuarial studies behind them. And the study that Nicole mentioned from Vanderbilt only underscored that this would be a solvent, stable program. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's very quick that you see that in these programs.
So one thing that I just learned from this, from your slides, Nicole, is that the TDI gets absorbed in this program. So I don't know how that works. So the state would need some kind of loan, or is there surplus that's in that TDI program that would be able to be utilized also to start this program? I'm just curious where the pushback was last year now and why it didn't pass last year.
Oh, that's a good question. So actually last summer, 2023, I was talking to a lot of kupuna groups about this. And one of them asked me, how many years have people been working on this? And I knew it had been many years, but I looked back in the Capitol website, and you can look back 20 years pretty easily. There have been paid family leave bills and resolutions for 20 years in Hawaii. And I think there's a few myths. So one is that it's going to cost the state a lot of money, which it's, if we do this payroll deduction program that, Jared has explained is the model that all these other states are using, it's not going to cost the state. It's going to self-sustain itself with the payroll deductions. The second is that it's going to cost employers a lot of money, right? Because I think a lot of employers think we're just asking them to give people 12 weeks, which we know is really expensive and not, and it's not fair to small businesses, for example. So that's not what we're trying to set up. But that's sort of the testimony that we're hearing from the chambers of commerce and some of the other business groups. And then we did get some pushback from unions, public sector unions, who don't want their workers to pay even half of the premiums. The way the bill is written is that the employer can cover all of it if they want to. It just caps how much the workers can put in it. At most, it's half. So hopefully, unions would be able to bargain for their employers to cover all of it. Or, I think, legislators are willing to talk about that. Like if we want to write something in to say that the state covers all of the state employees' premiums, like I think that could be negotiated during session. And the last one is Department of Labor does seem to think that this is going to be really complicated and difficult. So, we continue to talk to them, try to get them comfortable with this idea, to talk to them about how other states are going to be, how they're doing it, how it's running well. And Jared actually has a meeting with them in about a week and a half. So, we're hoping that Jared can help nudge the Department of Labor into feeling confident that they can run the program.
And are all employers in the bill that is coming out, are all employers, no matter what size, required to be participants?
Yeah, we
Okay.
we are ideally going to cover all workers in Hawaii. There's an opt-in for self-employed workers. So, with Social Security, if you're self-employed, you have
Mhm.
to pay both halves,
Right,
employer and employee, right?
right.
In this bill for paid family leave, if you're self-employed, you only have to pay the employee side, right? So only you don't have to pay double. And it's for self-employed workers, it's opt-in. And then there's also a thing in the bill that small employers only have to pay half in, so that's a recognition that small businesses, do struggle a bit with these types of costs. So we make it cheaper for the small businesses as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add too on the self-employed piece, that's definitely the case in many states, and it actually has, led to a number of employers also speaking not only on behalf of their workers and the benefits to their workforce, but to themselves. If, you're just starting out a business and, are getting it off the ground, in a number of states, I know some vocal spokespersons have been employers starting a new business and trying to get it off the ground and saying this will help me if I can opt into the program if I have a new child, for example, in the next year or two. So that has been another angle of the business voice, the way in which it encourages somebody to, be entrepreneurial and just provide more support in getting a business off the ground.
I mean, I'm thinking that if people have time off to heal and they don't have to worry about finances, the healing is also increased. I don't think that there's probably data on something like that, but that just seems like if you have less stressors, especially financial, because otherwise people want to go back early and get back to work. And then I just know from a previous job, we would have people who were out on TDI or any kind of leave, and then they'd want to come back so fast and then they re-injured.
Yep. Yeah, and
Or
there is research on that point exactly.
okay.
In terms of it lowers injury rates. Certainly, there's very strong research for new parents, both mothers and fathers, on mental health, postpartum depression, and stress. There's also similar research in terms of depression following adoption, and that access to paid family leave really improves the health of new parents, but also there's very clear research the health of their children. And I think you're exactly right that without a guaranteed benefit and program and the ability to afford it, people do come back early and suffer the health consequences, and that then affects their employers in
Right.
terms of
I mean,
their
especially caregivers. They're like,
yeah.
they want to stay home, but they have to go back to work. And if they're taking care of someone, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, Larry, if you have any questions about that aspect of this as well. I don't know if Larry's still,
Oh, hi. Yeah.
yeah.
No. I'm fine. I don't. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if there's any data about about the impact of coming back early, but probably that could be proven if there was somebody just sat down and did. I don't know, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think in terms of working with the Kupuna caucus and ensuring everyone there understands this too, just from the caregiver's perspective. Jared, do you have any anecdotal stories or anything that you can share that we can pass
Yeah.
along as well?
Yeah, no, there's definitely research, as well as, unfortunately, from doing this work for so many years, too many anecdotes of the stress and the financial consequences for caregivers of a loved one, in terms of not being able to provide that care. There's a lot of research showing that nursing home rates go down in states that have paid family leave because it allows loved ones to help provide care to an aging relative. And then a lot of research on the stress and emotional toll of caregiving for a loved one and not having access to benefits, as well as how many workers drop out of the workforce because they may not be able to keep a job and meet some caregiving needs. And that does tend to disproportionately be women and people of color. And then that obviously has a cascading effect once you're out of the workforce, even if just for a year or two, on future savings. So quite a bit of research, and it's why it's so great too that AARP is a vocal supporter here, because there really is this isn't just a new baby issue, and that's often sometimes how when people hear paid family leave, they just think about having a new child, but that it is also caring for a family member, in addition to here, really modernizing and rolling in your temporary disability insurance program. And I will just say, if it's helpful, Hawaii is one of 5 states that has a temporary disability insurance program that goes back in, I think, almost all 5 states to the late 40s, mid to late 40s. The other 4 states that had it have passed paid family leave and have a unified paid family and medical leave program. So it really does leave Hawaii as the one state that has only a standalone temporary disability insurance program, and one that really could use some reform and modernizing, given, it's an older program at this point and an older model, going back, I guess that would be more than 70 years now.
Jared, can you send or put your hands on the studies that talked about the impact on nursing home utilization rates and so forth? That would be, as you know, it's a great concern for Kapuna about just the availability and the cost of nursing homes.
Yep.
And if you can have that, if you can share that, that would be. You might have already shared it with AARP, but that would be very useful as we broach this with more of the seniors.
Yeah.
Who think about it more with moms and kids as opposed to their parents. That would be super.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, and just the rising number of caregivers who are taking care of parents, and possibly parents and children. So this is really important. And Larry, you touch on something really big, which is the cost of nursing home care. So this would definitely be saving at least the public, because that's something that none of us plan for, but that does ultimately happen for some people, that they need nursing home care. Sometimes when they're just getting out of surgery, that's a temporary place that they need to go because they don't have someone at home to care for them. I saw that a lot at the adult daycare that I worked at. So if someone took a fall or had a surgery of some kind, then they were out, their caregiver was out of,
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So Nicole and I just dropped in the chat some different sources, and the one that I mentioned, which was a public journal, an academic publication, found in California an 11% relative decline in elderly nursing home utilization. And you're right, Tanya, in terms of that short-term recovery. I mean, this was eye-opening to me, even as somebody who has done this, is that if I didn't have a partner who was able to take the time to care for me, because I was immobilized and bedbound for several months, I would have had to go to a short-term rehab facility, and I didn't have to. So definitely, an important point to raise up. And there's also research as well showing savings to taxpayers and the state in terms of public benefits. Because as you could imagine, people turn to, public benefits programs, TANF, food stamps, often when they have a new child, if they don't have access to paid family and medical leave. So yeah, definitely a lot of different angles for the benefits for a program like this.
Great.
That's great. Does anyone else have any questions? I'm sorry, I had so many questions as I was learning too. So this seems like a no-brainer. I'm surprised that this has been trying to happen for over 20 years just in this state.
Yeah, and I'll drop in the chat if anyone's interested, because it was 3 days ago. There was quite a bit of attention to a new study showing exactly what we just talked about in terms of how new moms often turn to TANF and public assistance when they have a new child. And I believe the research in the Journal of Marriage and Family studied the effects in Oregon, which has paid family and medical leave, on reducing some of that reliance on public assistance. So that was just 3 days old, that link that I just dropped.
I mean, this does seem to streamline those types of benefits in a different way. And it does kind of modernize the approach to, providing what people need. That's really interesting. Does anybody else have any questions? I just want to totally commend you, Jared, that you spent so much time, and you too, Nicole. Like, this is a really comprehensive viewpoint. I don't know if that presentation you just gave, Nicole, is available for, Larry or I to share with the Kapuna Caucus. I'll definitely be sharing this video with them as well, and sending it out to as many people as I can. Because I do think if more people understand how this impacts work-life balance, and as an employer, like for the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, for smaller employers, this does, it's really hard to hire people right now. It's a very competitive market, and this would allow us to compete in a different way with the at-home jobs that are from out-of-state larger corporations where people are working from home. It's so much better when people work in the community. So, any comments from anyone else? Do you guys have closing thoughts you want to share? I mean, Nicole, maybe you can say, like, what can we do to help spread the word about this? What can we do to help?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, over the years of trying to get this passed here in Hawaii, the other business community, let's put it that way, consistently opposes it, which is why I'm so thrilled that there is a Chamber of Sustainable Commerce here in Hawaii. We really do need a counterweight to those voices. As Jared said, it was crucial to the passage of these bills in other states to have a progressive business voice. So yes, I put the paid leave Hawaii link in the chat. You can sign up for action alerts on that site. And then you will get messages from me and my colleagues whenever one of the bills has a hearing. And, it's very quick turnaround. So you can even start writing your testimony now, so that when you get the action alert, because you pretty much, we need a business perspective, talking from the employer's point of view, talking from the small business point of view, how it will help you. So you don't need to be an expert in all the policy points like we are. We'll be submitting that testimony, but really just, like they say, write about what you know. If you can provide stories, like Jared provided some stories, that would be great. If you want to write letters to the editor, neighbor island newspapers, the Honolulu papers, that always helps legislators look and read their papers. And if any of you want to write an op-ed, maybe the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce is willing to do one. We're working on getting some comms consultants on board to help us with this. I think we signed the contract, so hopefully they'll be on with us soon, but we can work with you on that. But we do want to, as I said, put more voices out there into the media, and at the legislature to try to get this passed. And if anyone has a good connection with the governor, in the end, if he tells his Department of Labor that this is a priority, I think they might change their attitude a little bit. The governor did campaign on this. He did say he wanted to pass paid family and medical leave, and he is a doctor. But I don't feel that this has risen to his top priorities, and that's kind of what we need. So if anyone wants to weigh in with the governor, if you know him, please do that. But that's definitely what we need. We need some businesses to sort of say, hey, the other chamber doesn't speak for all of us, right?
Do you have a
So-
bill number yet?
No, they're circulating the bill for signatures right now.
Okay,
Yeah. So,
all right.
but yeah, as soon as we get it, we'll be sending it out to people who are signed up for our action alerts and signed up to be part of our coalition.
Okay, excellent. I did sign up for that. So I do hope
Right.
everyone signs up for those alerts. Jared, do you have any closing thoughts too?
No, I'll just say, I mean, thank you for having me and for your interest in the issue, and just, can't emphasize enough what I mentioned earlier. Nicole just reiterated, the voice of supportive businesses are critical. It's been critical in every state that has passed this. And unfortunately, some of the larger chambers that just oppose, government programs or requirements often speak, present themselves as speaking for all businesses. And so having employers who are willing to speak to what it means for their employees or their competitiveness and the points that you've raised really has been crucial to the success in other states. So, yeah, any
did-
questions
I do-
or ways we can help?
I did think of another question because dementia is on the rise. And so that's another thing that this, I would think, would help a lot of caregivers with, so that they can have time to assess and figure out what their game plan and strategy is going to be.
Yep. Yeah, and there is national support from groups like Us Against Alzheimer's and others that have, advocated for a national program, which, as you may guess, is not about to happen. Certainly not with the changes happening on Monday. So,
Right.
States have to continue to lead on this, but we have seen groups that advocate around dementia and Alzheimer's also being, vocal supporters of this.
Right. So, Larry, a good strategy for us is also to reach out to those caregiving groups and Alzheimer's Foundation and those kind of organizations and let them know about this as well. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I learned a lot. I'm surprised how much I learned. So in such a short time, I really appreciate both of you taking your time to do this. And I really just thank you for all the work that you put into this. I'm glad that you were able to benefit from your work, though, and advocacy work, because a lot of times we don't get to benefit from it, not when we're actually young and vibrant, like, so.
Yeah, thank you. Great to meet you.
Yeah, you too. You too. Good luck with your meetings. We wish you the best. May they receive your information and energy as best they can.
Thanks so much, Tanya.
All right. Everyone have a great day. Aloha.
Thank you.
Bye, Bev. Bye, Larry.